It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. Just email me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Our archives are free. You go to Spreaker.com, and that's where we have our archives. I do a live show there every Friday night. There's a chat room. You get an email notification when we put up new content. That's the best way to keep up with what we're doing. If you go there and you look up P.I. William Dorsch, or sometimes it's Bill Dorsch. I've played these repeats many, many times. William Dorsch was the private investigator in the John Wayne Gacy case. He's got incredible inside information on that case that you won't find anywhere else. He's just written a book called Omnipotent. Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He's living over in Bulgaria right now, and he's doing a local TV appearance coming up there soon. But check him out, too, on the Bob Motta, M-O-T-T-A, Defense Diaries on YouTube. They're doing a whole series of shows about Mr. William Dorsch's work, especially. He's doing a lot of great stuff. He's telling me off the air with the Innocence Project, okay, testifying against this Ronaldo Guevara, who's been, and these fellows over there in Chicago kind of jacking up a lot of guys, man, putting a lot of guys in prison that don't deserve to be there. Mr. William Dorsch, are you there?
Yes, sir. Hi, Ed. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much. Remind the audience, though, who is William Dorsch?
Well, I'm a long-time retired Chicago homicide detective. I completed my career in 1994 and quickly became bored and went back to work as a private investigator.
And you were telling me what was it, 81 you are?
Well, I'm 79.
79, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
and you moved to Bulgaria.
Well, my wife is from here.
Okay.
So I've been here, before we moved permanently a couple of years ago, I've been here about 20 times, and it was familiar to me, and it was a very good move. I love Bulgaria, Greece, and from here I can travel much, much easier to see the places I've always wanted to visit.
Okay, then real quick, couple of quick questions about Bulgaria. What about the language barrier? Do you have a problem with that?
Oh, it's horrific for me.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, my wife speaks 5 languages, and it seems like most of the European younger generation, they all speak English.
Okay.
So my limited use of Bulgarian, I'm saved by my wife or these young people that are just astounding. They've helped me so much, translation and with computer work. Amazing.
See, I got to find a country where they don't speak English at all, and then people will just stop talking to me, and I can just live my life.
Well, that was one of the reasons I left. If I would have remained in the United States, I was going to be besieged every day with more and more work requests.
Yeah.
And the only way I could finish the Gacy project was to get away so I could spend time on this topic.
Now, what about you living in a foreign country now? What do you notice the difference about the United States and Bulgaria? Like, we're so politically divided here right now, and people are so obsessed with the woke, all the anti-woke, and all this kind of crazy stuff. Is it a relief to be out of the country?
Oh, my God, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, even the COVID, when COVID was so big, from the time I got off the airplane in Sofia in April of 21 and walked out of the airport, nobody was wearing masks.
Yeah.
I mean, it was such a relief. And people were dying here at 90, 95. I don't know, but people weren't dying from COVID. But I'm in a smaller town of about 7,000 people, only 45 minutes away from the capital, Sofia, but it's great here. There's no crime.
Yeah.
It's quiet. People are respectful. You walk out of your house and everybody wants to talk to you. You can't. Everybody's giving you food. They want you to sit down. It's just different. It's really different.
It seems too like when you travel around the world, everyone smokes, everyone drinks, and they're healthy as horses, like bulls. These guys.
Yeah, I just came back from a bunch of days spending time in great restaurants, and everybody's smoking.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no restriction. I'm not a smoker, but, every partner I ever had on the police department smoked all day. So I'm used to it.
Yeah, well, let's not kid ourselves. We all have friends and relatives with lung cancer. It's a horrific death. But how come they don't have that over in Europe? How come no one over there is dying of lung cancer? Every other guy with losing his vocal box or whatever it is. But let's get
I'll tell you, there is one thing. If something's going to get you early in life here, it's called rakia. That's a homemade liquor.
Okay. Well,
and they sure know how to take that down.
I'm going to have to come out there and try it. Tell us about Omnipotent, Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The brand new book just came out September 13, 2023.
Yes. Well, the reason I named it Omnipotent, and by definition it means godlike, having the power of God. All right? And I've come to realize that governments, not only in the United States, but here and probably just about everywhere, on earth, they assume the position of God. Mm. They tell us what they want us to know, and they keep secret what they don't want us to know. They make rules and regulations for right and wrong, and we have to trust them. And I found through my investigative work, especially since I've been doing this as a PI working on Gacy, governments lie. They don't always tell you the truth. And they have reasons to keep it a secret. And that's what the book is about. It's not really about Gacy so much. Yeah, he's the factor. He killed. They found 33 bodies, and they always believed there were more. Okay, but we trusted that the sheriff's department who took over the investigation from the Des Plaines Police Department who made the arrest, we trusted that they did an honest and thorough investigation. And nobody questioned them. You realize in a lot of homicide cases in Chicago and Cook County, it takes years before that person goes into the courtroom for trial. But when John Wayne Gacy was arrested by Des Plaines, and that case was turned over to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, they tried that case in less than a year and a half with 33 victims. Imagine that. And they rushed that case through the courtroom because they wanted to put that Gacy case behind them, and they buried John Wayne Gacy along with the truth. That's why I titled it Omnipotent, Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Because if you don't ask questions, you don't get answers.
Well, let me ask you this. There's no doubt there was a lot of cover-up went on in the Gacy case. But it's not like it's not like Ariel Castro where he's found hung dead in his cell. You know what I mean? He was alive. He was in there. He was in the public eye. He was painting, doing all kind of stuff. How come he didn't come out with more information about what really went on behind the scenes?
I thought about it, and I've given a lot of thought about it. And I talked to Bob Mata recently about this too. Before Gacy was arrested, before he was executed, he'd been lingering in the jail. He's had a one-room, one-person cell. He was in there from 78 until he was executed in 94. And he never spoke up when he was initially arrested, he did say, do you have other people in custody? And they asked why, and he says, because they're involved.
Right.
And he did say there were 4 people. Okay? And you would think that the police would definitely want to talk to them, these people. And these people were never charged. And I can explain that. I've got all that. Joe Kozenzak, who headed the investigation, he was a lieutenant from Des Plaines Police Department that organized the surveillance that took days and days. And then they arrested Gacy. Okay. He wrote a book, as did Terry Sullivan, who was one of the prosecutors. He wrote a book also about Gacy. And when I reviewed those books after Gacy's arrest, years after Gacy's arrest, I was curious as to why that they had changed the names of 2 of the 4 people that Gacy had said were accomplices. All right? And I was very curious about that. So I had to go back to the very beginning of the investigation. What better place to go to than the guy who headed it, Joe Kozenczak. And so I met with him a total of 3 times, but in the very first meeting that I had with him, that was the big question I had of him. I said, what was the reason for you changing the names of Michael Rossi and David Cram in your book? And he said, well, I'll tell you, this is what happened. He says, a couple days before we arrested Gacy, we had Michael Rossi into this Blaines office, and we were grilling him about his possible involvement with Gacy. We hadn't yet found any bodies, but we were asking Rossi to help us. And Rossi, he had even told him, well, if you want to find a peace boy, look in the crawl space under the house. Okay? Well, anyway, while they were talking to him and grilling him, he said that he heard some noise out in the outer lobby, so he went out to investigate, and there was a woman there with a man. And he inquired, what's the problem? What's going on here? And she turned to him and to Terry Sullivan and said, do you have my son, Michael Rossi, here in custody? And he said, yeah, ma'am, we do. He's here. We're just talking to him at this point. He's not under arrest. We're just talking to him. And she says, well, I'm going to tell you this. If you do not release my son now, you won't have a job tomorrow. So, I mean, that's pretty brazen.
Okay, but Bill, William Dorsch, that happens every day in police stations. Okay,
I've had it said to me,
right?
And usually when it's said to me, you just dismiss it. Okay,
right.
This is blubber. I don't care. I don't know who you know or who you think you know.
And I don't care. I got the PBA. I'm not. No, you're not going to touch me. I got the PBA.
No.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to do my job.
Right.
But the Kozenczak and Sullivan standing there, that's the obvious question. Well, you know, that's pretty brazen of you to be threatening me. I'm going to lose my job. Why? She says, because I'm the mother of Michael Rossi, and he is the grandson of Vito Marzullo. Now, you may not know that because you're not from Chicago, but for everybody in the 70s, 60s and 70s, 80s, and into the 90s knew that he was the second most powerful politician in the city of Chicago. And her son, Michael Rossi, was living with Gacy.
Michael Rossi was living with Vito Marzullo.
No, Michael Rossi is the grandson of Vito Marzullo.
Gotcha.
Michael Rossi was living in the house with John Wayne Gacy, as did David Cram at one time.
Oh, wow.
They were so trusted, they admitted that they were digging the holes underneath the house. Okay?
Where are these two today? Are they walking around?
David Cram committed suicide.
Okay.
And Michael Rossi is free, but not without a criminal record. He does have other arrests,
right? As
he was linked to the mafia and events that cost him about 6 years in prison. But he's living in, I think he's in Texas now.
Right.
But he's never been charged with the Gacy case. They used him upon learning that he was a grandson of Vito Marzullo. He went from being a suspect and accomplice in these murders to being used as a witness in the courtroom against Gacy. And of course, David Cram also was used as a witness against Gacy. Cram did not have the same association to anybody of note. Okay, he was just David Cram, right? But you could not release Michael Rossi and charge David Cram.
Right.
So Cram got lucky that he got used as a witness, and like Rossi did, and was not prosecuted.
You said there were two others. You said 4 people.
Yes, there was. Gacy mentioned a third one, Philip Paskey. and I've got a lot about that in my book, believe me. Philip Paskey was known to have an association with a man named John Norman. Okay? John Wayne, what's that? John Wayne Norman? Yes. And he had he was known as perhaps the most prolific pedophile recruiter in the country.
That's the one that all his paperwork disappeared. All of his notebooks.
All his records, all his notes, they all disappeared from when he got arrested in Dallas. He had about 50,000 names, and all of that disappeared when it was turned over to the State Department, who said they were only interested in it as if it had
overseas
something with immigration or something like that. So they destroyed it. They destroyed the names, even though they were told that they were people from Washington, people of important people that were on the list.
And did you say his middle name was John Wayne Norman too? He was John Wayne too?
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
Well, there's another one too. There's another kid that this is too much to tell you in one event.
Yeah, we're gonna have you come back. I can already tell we're having you come back. Yeah, next week.
There's another guy named Harold Wayne Lovell that you're going to be very interested in hearing about.
Okay.
And his middle name is Wayne.
I wonder who Wayne was. That's the guy we got to look into, right? Harold Wayne Lovell. Okay, who's the original Wayne out there? Oh boy.
Well, actually, so Gacy never named a fourth person.
Okay.
But it's either we'll get into it. A little bit. I think it's possibly Norman because he was out and about at that time in Chicago.
Gotcha. What about, I had a guest on recently.
Let me give you another thing while we're talking about Paskey.
Okay.
Paskey, who Gacy says is an accomplice, worked for Gacy. Okay. And of course, when the police start their investigation, they knew some of the missings were employees of Gacy, that their families already reported them missing. So as a detective, I would think that one of the first places you want to go to look would be at his records to see who was employed by him. If they would have looked at those records, they would have found Philip Paskey's name. Okay? And if they don't go to talk to him, you got to wonder why, especially because if they do a criminal background check on him, they would have found out that this young man, Philip Paskey, was already involved in a murder.
Oh, wow. So 30 dead bodies, and they don't go talk to Philip Paskey?
Never. And it wasn't hard to find him because he was arrested in Chicago with Norman in an apartment building where they were filming young boys in sex acts. And he also had a job working as a lifeguard at a Chicago Park swimming pool.
That was like one of those city-run parks?
He wasn't hiding.
A city-run parks department type of pool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he would have been hard to find. But, what was standing out would be that murder conviction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You got to want to talk to them. But they didn't go looking for people. They didn't go. They stopped their investigation with the arrest of John Gacy.
And Philip Paskey, where is he today?
He's deceased. He died of AIDS.
What about, I had a guest on recently who's doing a lot of fascination with Dean Corll, the Candyman. How is he? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a connection there, too, but it's mostly, Harold Wayne Henley. Or is it Harold Wayne Henley? I think it is. I'm not sure about the first name right now. It's in my book again.
Okay.
But Wayne is the middle name, and Henley, he was one of the two accomplices of Correll.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But Gacy, I questioned Henley. I had a writing, I wrote letters to him in prison. He's doing life. All right?
Who is?
Him and the other young man that was arrested with him, they both got life sentences. The other one has now died, and he wouldn't write back to me, but Henley did. And I asked him specifically because I was curious if he had this relation with, if Norman had a relationship with Gacy. But Gacy was in prison until 1971. And Correll was killed, and I think it was the end of 72 or early 73. Okay? So Gacy's in Chicago, and Norman was in Dallas, Texas at the time when Gacy first got out. But Henley said he never, ever heard of Gacy until Gacy was arrested. And then I asked him, well, have you ever written to Gacy or Gacy written to you? And he said no. He has no knowledge of it. But Gacy did say to the police that when he was asked about Correll, that he knew all about Correll's history and what led to his arrest.
Wait, who said that? Gacy said that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He was a student of Correll, if you want to look at it that way, because everything that Correll was doing was in the newspapers after he got killed. Okay, the torture board, the young boys bringing other boys to Correll and getting paid, and even getting cars and stuff like that to use from the victims. That was all knowledge that Gacy got from the newspapers and such.
Yeah, fascinating. So that's exactly the Epstein MO too, by the way, too. He would have the young girls recruit other girls, and he would also give them cars. He would give them rental cars. He would rent cars for them.
Well, yeah, and Correll was running the business, and so was Gacy, and, they found out that, they had to put a lot of time into the streets, and like Gacy especially, a couple of times he got his ass whipped a little bit, trying to make an arrest. Trying to capture some young man. And so he learned the obvious. It's easier to have these other young boys bring the victim to them.
Right. You mentioned, especially before the air, you said one of the main topics of your book is the cover-up. What do you think is the motive for the cover-up in this case? Well, to me, it would seem obvious. Like if they get a hold of Norman's black book and his material, whoever has that in their possession, their physical hand, has huge blackmail. That's a huge hammer to have over all your co-workers and your boss, the mayor. Yeah.
Well, he was arrested in Homewood after he left Dallas. I know we're talking about Norman now. After he left Dallas, he came to Homewood, Illinois, and he was there, and he got arrested there after assaulting a number of boys. Well, it wasn't assaulting. They willingly participated until somebody complained to the police, and then he got arrested and charged with sex acts. And he actually went to prison here for that. Okay. But there was a book recovered there. There was also a book recovered in Chicago when the police made the arrest in the apartment where the boys were being filmed. There was a book with addresses and names of clients. See, he ran newsletters. That's how he got people involved. They didn't have the computers at that time,
right?
But he had used newsletters where people would sign up, and they would acquire the newsletter through their signing up with his group. And he would connect men with interest in young boys. And these boys would be sent around the country through Norman.
That's interesting that you said they'd be sent around the country, because remember the information I sent to you. Who was that young boy again? The one that the mother said it wasn't her son and it was proven?
Michael Molino.
Yeah, Michael Molino. And I sent you that picture of appears to be the same boy, Michael Molino, and a picture of him in the collection of Rodney Acala, the dating game killer in California, who was a student of Roman Polanski. Okay? And very strange. The whole Acala situation is very strange, because here's this guy. He's living with his mother in a little one-bedroom tiny apartment. He's bringing all these women in there. He's raping them, torturing them, cutting them up. Right in front of the mom. You know what I mean? How do you cover that up? Mom, you got a sponge? I need to clean the bathroom. I got you. There's just, this stuff is crazy. What is going on out there?
I don't know. It's I've seen so much in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just shake your head. You can't understand it.
But the filming, they're sending them around. Where were they sending these boys? And they're filming them. Who are they selling the films to?
Well, others on that booklet.
Yeah.
On that booklet. You know, I mean, on the book list, on that membership list. You know, he would connect young boys with interested male clients.
Right.
And they had group homes around the country. Okay. And one of those group homes, as I identify it, is, you'll see the connection to the Gacy, couple of the Gacy cases. But not through Gacy, through somebody else who was connected to Norman.
Okay, then they had group homes. Now, were these like state-funded group homes or just like unofficial type group homes, crash pads?
It was trying. What Norman was trying to do was, like I said, it was all about sex.
Yeah.
All right. But they were trying to say, well, it's good for these young people to have this union with an older man who could guide them through life and give them a pathway through life, sort of type thing. But actually, it was all about sex. And he was supposedly would get a piece of the money from the homeowner that ran the home for other men to come to the house to have sex with the boys that came there. So it was like a prostitution thing where you had homes or, private homes where you would invite other you would have the young boys sent to you through Norman, and then you would have people who were members who would come to the house.
Yeah.
Sex. So it wasn't always just with the one person, but others were invited.
Well, yeah, but these were like unofficial group homes. These weren't like a front for a real. Okay, gotcha. These were just like crash type pads. I guess they call them trap houses now for the drugs and stuff like that. You got these kids in there. Okay.
And Gacy even said about about Norman that he made mention of snuff films. If you remember that. He said you ought to look into him. But, the thing about Norman, if Gacy was, he never mentioned Norman as the fourth person. Okay? So we don't know for sure. But I'm sure that to a guy like John Wayne Gacy, that Norman being so prolific in the prostitution trade of young boys, he was like a human ATM machine.
Yeah.
So maybe Gacy didn't want to give him up. Or maybe there is another one. And you'd have to read the book to find out. I think I may have hit it, but I don't know how involved the person was.
So there's another name you haven't given me here that's in the book?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when Gacy's doing time in prison, how was it? Was he doing easy time? Did it seem like he was getting a lot of support? Did he have friends in there? What was that like?
I don't know. I mean, I've been down to that prison for other cases down in Southern Illinois, and he had a reputation. He had a single cell. He was he started painting clown pictures and stuff like that, and that's how he spent his time. I mean, he had visitors. He had female visitors coming to visit him. One woman in particular from Canada came down and talked to him several times. Reporters came in and talked to him. He never gave up anybody else. He never gave up anybody else. And, that would have saved his life. Think about that.
Or maybe the other way around, because it seems like nobody wanted anybody to do any talking and all this. They wanted him quiet, and I think he got an easier time by being quiet, by keeping his mouth shut.
Well, he knew a lot of politicians.
Yeah.
He threw huge parties at his house, and I can tell you, there's you talk about evidence disappearing in the book. I'll tell you, it's big. People did not want to be after. Of course, people didn't know. I mean, I had dinner at this man's house in 1974. All right, I didn't know he was going to turn up in the news someday to be a mass murderer. All right, but I had no trouble admitting it, that I had been at his house. All right? And Bill Dorsch, I'm just a normal guy. I was in that house. I'm astounded. I was there with my wife and kid.
Yeah.
But other people who were politicians did not want that connection to Gacy. He knew a lot of politicians. He ran the Polish parade in Chicago every year. All right? And if you knew Gacy, if you had gone to any of his parties, the last thing you would have wanted was a picture of you sitting there with your arm around John Gacy.
Oh, we lost him. We got to recall him back here. We just disconnected with our guest, William Dorsch. Oh, what the heck is this? I got to buy $10 in credit? Huh.
What happened, buddy?
William Dorsch, how are you? You know what happened? Suddenly I see a thing comes on my Skype screen saying, you're out of credits. You got to give us $10 to talk to William Dorsch. It's never happened before in 10 years. I guess Bulgaria has their own extortion over the phone company over there. But let's.
That's right. Okay. I know. I'm sorry we're not on Skype. But,
no, that's fine. Oh, that's right. You're right. Probably because I'm not calling another Skype number. Okay, let's get back here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and go. We're back with William Dorsch. What happened was we had a little problem with the phone connection. The book is called Omnipotent, Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And also, too, you can check him out on his Bob Mata Defense Diaries on YouTube. Bob Mata is a defense attorney. He's got a whole YouTube channel there, and he's doing a series of shows with William Dorsch. I'm going to beg William Dorsch to come back next week and give us more info. But William Dorsch, we left when we got cut off there mysteriously, right? When we got cut off.
Yeah.
You were saying about how you had dinner at John Wayne Gacy's house, and then after he got caught, you're walking around saying, hey, I was in this guy's house, where all these other guys are saying, well, I don't know anything about this guy, so, which is usually a clear sign of who's guilty and who's not, right? Like, I just don't want to admit no. Yeah. But let me ask you this. Now, when you're in this guy's house, and he's throwing these parties, is William Dorsch saying, hey, where's this guy getting all his money from? He's got this contracting business. Was that enough to fund his lifestyle?
Well, see, I wasn't at a party. What happened was my wife worked for an insurance company, and Gacy's lived not far away from the office in Des Plaines. And he came to her offices to pick up repair work for clients who had damages in their home.
Gotcha.
And he would do work, come back to her, and she would pay him for the work done. And she came home one day in 74 and said, hey, we're invited over to this guy, John Gacy's house, to have dinner with him and his wife. And I had probably never heard Gacy's name mentioned before. But my wife said, he's a nice guy, let's go. So we went. And that's how I met him, through that. But other people went to those parties and such, and he had 200-300 guests at some of those parties. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
You're right. So now your wife was cutting him checks. Was she suspicious as saying, why is this guy throwing these parties? I'm cutting him the checks. Or did the checks cover?
We didn't know anything about that. We didn't know. We'd never been invited other than at one time to the house. I never went back.
Gotcha. So were the checks he was getting from your wife, were they significant or enough to support that kind of loss?
I have no idea. It was, like I said, insurance claim work, maybe fire damage, flood damage. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, he was a workaholic. He was a workaholic. He worked long and hard.
It seems like all those serial killers they have no problem with money. They have no problem making money. Or they support their lifestyles. You wonder, how do they do all that?
Yeah.
Okay, now, William Dorsch got involved in this case because you were hired as a private investigator by one of the attorneys whose client said, hey, my son, I don't think that's my son. The victim buried under the house that's identified as my son, I don't think that's my son. That's how you came involved?
Well, no. Actually, I came involved within days after his arrest.
Okay.
Because I was 74, I met him. I had gained knowledge of him in another location that was near where I lived. And when he got arrested in 78, law enforcement, Des Plaines Police, Sheriff's Department was asking for information about missing kids or locations where bodies might be buried. And I had this one particular location where I was suspicious of. So I contacted the sheriff's department by phone and told them about the location, suspecting that they would go talk to the residents in that apartment building and to the owner, only to find out years later that they never did. Okay? But for many years, from his arrest in 78 until 1998, that's all I had was this information that I gave to the sheriff's department. I trusted they did their job. And
you actually went out there with a company with ground penetrating radar, but they weren't allowed to dig, because people come to me and say, they dug at those apartments. And I says, no. William Dorsch sent me the letter from the company. They weren't allowed to dig at the specific spots where they located the bodies. Am I right?
No. Well, partially.
Okay, explain to me.
Okay. In 1998, Gacy's already dead.
Right.
All right. Having been a policeman in Chicago, I understood that the city of Chicago was very embarrassed, and so was the police department, by the Gacy case, because so many boys had gone missing from Chicago and then became victims found many years later. But Chicago was very lucky because the bodies at Gacy's house were not in Chicago, but in unincorporated Norwood Township, which was a little area, but entirely surrounded by the city of Chicago. Mm. So they were very lucky, but embarrassed. They did not want the Gacy case reopened. Okay? They did not want it. They put that Gacy case with 33 victims through the court system in less than a year and a half. Amazing that it would go through so fast. All right? So my information that I had given them after Gacy's arrest in 78 was really relevant to the crimes that he was doing, but they never did anything. So when I brought it up in 98, and they were, again, very threatened by the information. Well, the first time nobody knew. I mean, I didn't know if they did a search or nothing at that time, but only later I found out they didn't. So when it came big news again in 98, now they were really angry with Bill Dorsch, okay, because it was in the news. So that's how I really, really got involved in the Gacy case.
How many bodies do you think are at this apartment?
Well, according to Ron LaBarca, and whose letter is the copy of his letter is in the appendix of my book, he said in this when he see the first search, it was us who brought him to Chicago to search. We did it without the knowledge of the police department. They didn't know it. We couldn't go to them because they would have stopped us. We knew we couldn't go to the homeowner, the apartment building owner, because you just can't say Bill Dorsch thinks bodies are here, so we're going to dig up your yard or front lawn. You needed something more than suspicion. So when Ron LaBarca came and joined with me in a Better Government Association and my ex-homicide boss, we decided to do it a covert scheme where we did not have permission. We just got on the property, and lo and behold, we were able to do the front and the parking lot without being interrupted. Okay? Then that information was taken to the Chicago police, and at first we were told, you've been talking about this for all these years, Bill. Anything you need, we're here to help. So I suspected that they were going to meet with us, talk to Ron LaBarca, and that then they would make a decision about whether to search or not search that property. Okay? But that's not what happened. When Ron LaBarca came back the second time, it was per the request of the Better Government Association, me and my old homicide boss, to meet with the Chicago police, and they were in charge of the search. The Chicago Police Department was decided in charge of the search, except there were events that occurred and threats that were made prior to that search by the city of Chicago. I can only tell you that in Ron's letter it says that when he met with them on the day of the search in 98, before the search began, he and his partner who flew in from England, who was an expert in the radar scan also, said that it was obvious to them that Chicago did not want to find anybody.
Yeah.
But so what Chicago had done is restrict them from doing the entire property. Now, Ron LaBarca knew where he wanted to search because he had done it with us before, but they would not let him do certain areas. But when he did the limited search that he was allowed to do, they told him, you can only just pick out 2 locations. And he protested. He said, that's not good enough. There's more locations that need to be searched. And they said, no, just 2. And then they took him and his partner, put him in a car and drove him to the airport. So they weren't even on the property when the so-called search was done.
Whoa, I wasn't aware of that. I read the letter. You sent me the letter. It's a very frank letter. You could feel his frustration in his letter.
Ron says in the letter, there were enough anomalies on the property that should have sent a trained detective running to a hardware store for a shovel.
Wow.
But he wasn't there.
And just think of the bravery of this guy here. They pretty much run him out of town, and he still puts this in writing. Yeah. In Chicago.
Yeah, yeah.
Now
he's from the East Coast. Yeah. He's from the East Coast. He's out there.
Now William Dorsch. Maybe we should get him as a guest. He's around, right?
Well, he's so fed up with the city of Chicago.
Yeah.
That I tried to get him to engage again with me, and he's been reluctant to do so because he was disgusted with it. And he's a businessman, don't forget.
Yeah.
And so, but in the last paragraph of his letter, and it's in the book, it says he believes in it so deeply and in what I did and what we found that he will make himself available whenever I need him. But you can inquire, but from what I know from a year ago, that he really doesn't want anything to do with Chicago.
Yeah.
But I've got the letter. Thank God.
Now, what about William Dorsch? Now, by the way, William Dorsch is not just like your average homicide detective. This guy was like a really, really superstar over there. And like we said, he's testifying now on all these innocence projects. We're going to have him come back and just talk about that exclusively. Serious guy, William Dorsch. So now, when all this is going on and you're working on this, you must be brushing up against guys that you know, right? Were any of them telling you, hey, William, man, stay out of this, man? Were any threats, intimidation, anything?
The Gacy case is so important not only to me, to the families that are missing.
Right.
The kids that were identified, and there's still 5 that are not identified. I wanted to focus on the evidence about the failed search by the city of Chicago, but to bring people up to speed, I had to go into the things that led up to the searches, okay? Because it shows the attitude and the fear in the city of Chicago and the police department, Chicago PD, Cook County State's Attorney, the sheriff's office. It's all relevant because what you will see in the book is what they were doing. You feel their anger. You feel their worry and fear that this is going to become known, okay? And it's all there. And, I had a right. I was interested in proving that, I became interested after Mrs. Moreno. About the phony arrest, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, after that, I said to myself, my God, if they're going to do this to this
Wait, stop there. I know about the phony arrest, but tell the audience. I don't think we talked about it last time. Go ahead.
All right. Well, Mrs. Moreno, her son Michael, disappeared in 1976, in October of 76. And he was 14 years old. He disappeared with his friend, Kenneth Parker. And she reported his son missing that night. She said, my son's 14. He was supposed to be home for dinner. He would not stay out. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't contact me if something was wrong. Well, she was searching for him, constantly going to the police. She was going to Chicago police, and so worried about him, and the days went into weeks and then months and then to a couple of years. And then when Gacy got arrested, she said, "Oh my God, I fear that my son might be a victim." So she did what other mothers were asked to do: send in your child's dental records. All right, because we didn't have DNA at the time. If there was going to be an identification, usually it would be through dental records or fingerprints. And what 14-year-old kid has fingerprints on file? So she sent the dental records in, and Gacy's trial was coming up, and she's being told she's asking the state attorney's office and the medical examiner, "Have you found my son yet? Has he identified my son?" They say, "No, Mrs. Brainey, your son is not a victim of John Gacy. Don't worry about it. Don't go to the trial." So she doesn't go to the trial. Gacy's convicted. And then about a month or so after the trial, she gets she answers her door in her apartment, and it's two men who tell her they're detectives and they need to talk to her. And they come in and tell her, "Oh, Mrs. Moreno, we got bad news for you. We've identified the body of your son. Your son is a victim of John Gacy." And she said, "Wait a minute. You've had my son's dental records for years, constantly telling me that he's not a victim, and now you want me to believe that he is a victim." Okay? And she said, "Well, they said, hey, ma'am, we're just policemen. We were told to tell you, and we need to take you through and explain to you. We have some evidence we want you to look at, and we want you to know that you can pick up your son's body." All right. So she winds up burying the body. All right. And, well, there's so much more here. I think I got to slow it down a little bit because I don't want to get it out of order. So maybe before we go further, because we were talking about the searches, I want to go back to that.
Okay.
There was the search that we did with Ronald Abarca without the police knowledge. That led to the information be turned over to the Chicago Police Department, who did the first search in '98, which I knew beforehand was going to be fake because people in the police department, friends of mine, had told me they were going to fake it and not find anything. And then in 2011, when I again got involved with new information, they were again forced to become involved in the Gacy case, and they did a second search. This time it was the sheriff's department that did the search, and it was in secret that they did the search. And they announced that we did the search again and didn't find anything. Okay? What they don't know is there's another search. You're going to have to talk to Bob Mata. I want him to tell you about it.
Okay.
All right? Because nobody knows about this.
Okay. And is Bob Mata going to talk about this on his YouTube channel?
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, he's going to get the brunt of everything, I know. To be, like I said, we're going to be doing probably 20 weeks or more based on my book.
Gotcha. Real quick, because we're running out of time today, and I'd like to invite you to come back next Saturday. We can tape again, you think? We'll talk about it.
I think so.
Okay. Well,
I think so. But we'll talk during the week. Send me an email, okay?
Okay. But now, real quick.
But I really would like you to reach out for Bob Mata. I can send you his contact info.
I will, I promise. Real quick then. You said there are 5 bodies underneath Gacy's house that haven't been identified.
Well, yeah, there's a total of 33 bodies found not only from Gacy's house and on the property, but from the river, too. Okay? So that's a total of 33 bodies.
Now, you talk about how kids were being sent around to different locations, these crash houses. We're talking about these group homes. They're being filmed. Any indication that perhaps some of these kids were being imported from out of city, out of town to Gacy's home, and he was filming?
I have found no evidence that happened, and I was trying desperately to find that. I know that Norman had the connection to Homewood, Illinois, where he got arrested.
Right.
But is it possible that actually Norman could have had a better relationship with Gacy than we know of. Gacy never spoke of it.
Okay.
But wouldn't it be something if he had been at one of Gacy's parties?
Real quick, again, you talk about these searches at this apartment, that there's a huge cover-up, and then the cops go back there and do their own secret search and come, oh, we couldn't find nothing. Would it be far-fetched to say, hey, man, these cops might have gone in there and destroyed evidence?
In Gacy's home?
No, at the apartments where the ground-penetrating radar fellow was searching. He said the cops went back and did a third secret.
Oh, yeah. Bob Matter and I have spent a lot of time discussing this, all right, because a period of years from 1998 and then 2011 search, 2012, to now, could something have been removed?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very possible. But Bob will tell you about that.
Okay, Bob holds all the secrets. So this attorney has an envelope with all the secrets.
I'll tell you, he and I are working so diligently. We're not done.
I got you. It's great stuff, man. I'm glad to see you. You wrote the book Omnipotent, Don't Ask, Don't Tell by William Dorsch, D-O-R-C-H. You can find our previous interview. I think we did 2 hours at the Spreaker channel there. We'll have it up too on Patreon. Bob Motta, M-O-T-T-A, Defense Diaries on YouTube. They're doing like a 20-part series. You can check that out. I also want to have William Dorsch come back no matter what, besides Gacy, about this Ronaldo Guevara. He's testified in how many cases, how many Innocence Project cases have you been testifying in, Mr. Dorsch?
Oh, probably close to 24.
Yes.
Some of those cases I actually did the investigative work and then brought it to the attorneys or to the Innocence Project, and they worked the case and got them exonerated.
Yeah, incredible work you're doing here, my friend. Thank you so much. Well, let's talk during the week and we'll see what we can come up with.
Okay, I'll get that information to you after I review what you sent me on that other boy. Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you. William Dorsch, Omnipotent. Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Check it out on Amazon.com. We'll have a link in the description. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good night.